In our Studio Data Architect 20.3, we now have integration with Git. We've built support for Git and we've tested it against a number of repositories, including GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket, Azure Repos and Assembla. The integration allows you to do three things. So as you're creating physical models of data assets, and you can generate code, and that includes DDL and JSON code, etc. You can commit and push that code to a Git repository. And for DDL, you'll push the create DDL for the database as a whole. Within that, you can create branches, and every time you perform a commit push operation, you can cast a new version. You can then use the compare merge tool to be able to compare a current model against a previous version of that create DDL. And from that, you can then generate an alter script and again push that alter DDL to the Git repository. So let's go and look at it. So here in my GitHub account, I've created a repository, HR database, which represents our HR training database system. In Data Architects, I've got a new option for Git, and I can set up the URL for the server and my credentials, and then create a local path to a folder that's going to hold my Git repository, and I can clone that repository to my local machine. Once I've set up the integration with Git, I can then start to push DDL. So here in my model, I've created my first version of my physical data model. I can then use the create database wizard to generate a script to my Git repository. So it's connected to my Git repository, and I can select the file name for my create DDL file, which is based on the name of the physical data model. I can specify a commit message. As usual, I can then generate the DDL as normal. Once I hit finish, it's going to connect to my Git repository, perform the commit and push operations, and it's completed. If we go back to our Git repository and refresh, there's my file that I've just created and the commit statement. Pretty straightforward. So now I can go through a change cycle. As usual, I can change my logical model to capture the change required. I've added in 2 new columns to my employee entity. We can then propagate those changes to our physical model using compare merge. Here's my 2 new attributes. Push those to the target. And I can see my 2 new columns in my physical model. So this might be the end of my changes. At this point, I can now generate my new version of my DDL. So I'll go through the same process. We can use the same file name, and we're going to apply a new commit message. And we'll do the push and commit. Okay. So we can go back, and we should now be able to see, if we update, the commit message in our GitHub repo has been updated. And we can go and look at this particular file, and we can see the history. And we can see the differences between the 2 files in Git. Now, comparing the text in the files isn't always intuitive, so that's where ER Studio's compare merge feature is so important. So I can now compare the newest version of the physical model against our previous version in our Git repository. So we choose the file that we're looking to compare, and I can see the previous versions. So let's compare against version 1. I'm going to select the checkbox to generate our alter script, choose which tables we want to compare, and we can see that 2 new columns is the only difference between the 2 versions. So we can choose all of those changes to propagate and create an alter script that will take us from version 1 to version 2. And we'll choose to generate our file to Git. And we can specify the file name for our alter script, v1 to v2. And provide a commit message. So our alter script's now committed. Let's go and have a look at it. So here we are back in GitHub. There's my alter script. There's the DDL code generated by Data Architect. We can also generate branches in our Git repo. Instead of pushing our DDL code back to the main branch, we can create new branches at any time. Okay, so in summary, our integration between Data Architect and Git allows you to commit and push, create DDL, you can create branches, and then you can compare and merge your model against previous versions of a create DDL to then create alter scripts that take you between the versions. Thanks very much for watching. For more information, come and see us at erstudio.com or scan the code. Thanks.